Yes, please. Yes, please. Hello, all. Bear with me. Just have some technical difficulties I'm working through. Why isn't it working? Oh my gosh, man, I don't like this. I'm gonna have to ask you about what you were talking about a moment ago later, because this is not working. I don't get it. I don't get it. Hey guys, just working through some technical difficulties, getting started right now. Bear with me. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining me this evening. So my name is Mitchell Jacob. I am the Democratic candidate for House District 20 right here in good old Oklahoma. This evening, I'm going to get started in just a moment, start talking about myself, some of the issues that I strongly believe in, and some of the ways that I think that we can make Oklahoma a better place. What I'd like to do is say this, and I'll say it multiple times throughout this event this evening, but if you'd like me to answer any questions at the end of this, you can put them in the chat, but in case they get lost that way, another way that you can do it is to send me an email, mitch@mitchelljacob.com. I've got the email open on my laptop right here, and at the end, I'm going to go ahead and check it, go through the chat, and start trying to answer questions that you or others may have for myself about the campaign, about the district, about Oklahoma, and I'll do what I can to try to get to each and every one of those questions. But I've got a couple of questions for you really quickly. Are you proud that Oklahoma is ranked 49th out of 50 in the United States for education? Do you believe that your tax dollars should be used to pay for private school tuition and that there shouldn't be an income tax on that private school tuition? An income cap is what I meant to say. And are you proud of the superintendent of public education who seems to be auditioning for the Trump administration instead of trying to address the education that your children right here in Oklahoma are receiving today? Well, the answer to each of those for me is no. And that's why I'm running today. My name is Mitchell Jacob, the Democratic nominee for House District 20. And I just want to tell you a little bit about myself really quickly, why I find myself in the position of running for office today. And then we're just going to dive right into it. I've got a number of topics that I'd like to go over with you today. So I'm an Oklahoma native, fourth generation. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm one of 9 children. So trust me when I say that I know what it's like to grow up in poverty. I know what it's like to grow up with nothing but love in the household. And I know what it's like to grow up without being able to get new shoes, a new backpack, or even a new outfit every year for school. But it was a blessed life. And like I said, it was full of love. And I was so thankful for the upbringing that I received. I went to Union School District in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But I did not graduate from there because my senior year, I unenrolled myself from Union. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and decided to finish up high school there. I love the unknown. But I'm proud of Oklahoma, and after a long journey, I've come back to Oklahoma, specifically in July of 2022, when I transitioned off of active duty service out of the Army. My wife, my kids, and myself, we moved back here. And I mentioned my kids, my wife and I, we have 5 kids. They're all boys. I still don't know how that happened. Someone can give me the statistical probability of that later, and it will still probably not be accurate enough. But we're blessed to live here in Newcastle, and we absolutely love it. House District 20 has been really good to us, and we finally found a community, and we found a home. And I'm dedicated to using my degree, my education, my time, my money, and my effort to making this a better place for your children, for my children, and for me. I could probably talk about a lot of things that have happened in life, but you're not here to listen to too much about me. You're here to listen to what I think we can do to make Oklahoma a better place and make your life a better place. And the reason I think I can help out is, my friends, the reason I chose to run in the beginning, like I said, I have 5 kids and they all go to public school. My wife and I, we got tired of sitting around the kitchen table complaining about the state of the public school system here in Oklahoma. And we decided that we had 2 choices. We could continue to complain about the state of the public school systems in Oklahoma, or we could do something to make a difference in the education that your children receive and the education that my children receive. And so I chose to run for office to become a representative for House District 20, to hold Ryan Walters accountable for his actions, and to prevent the Oklahoma State Department of Education from becoming an out-of-control administrative agency that is unaccountable to the people and that chooses to do anything that it wants despite its legislative mandate. That does not include PR tours. That does not include spending state money on a personal bid for the Trump administration. And that does not include withholding funds from school districts to make political points instead of ensure compliance with law. And that's why I find myself here. As I've hinted on, I think that there are 2 things really that we can do to immediately improve education in Oklahoma, and then plenty of things that we can do in the long term to make a big difference. The first one is that I think we need to immediately amend the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act. Starting next year for the 2025-2026 school year, $250 million per year of your tax dollars will be going to pay for private school tuitions for Oklahomans. Now, let's be clear, there is no income cap for receiving those funds, and roughly 35% of the funds for the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act this past academic year went to households that have a household income of $150,000 or greater. My friends, I don't know about you and me. I don't know about you, but for me, I don't think that a household with $150,000 per year in income needs your tax dollars to pay for their children's private school tuition. And I want to do something about that. So I have 2 plans for those funds, if I can get your support in winning this election. First, before we pay for a single additional tuition with that money, I think the first thing we should do with it is ensure that every child who attends public school in Oklahoma gets free lunch and free breakfast every single day that they show up to school. $250 million per year will more than pay for that program. And in fact, I've read a statistic that it would only cost approximately $88 million per year to ensure that every single school-aged child in Oklahoma can be fed lunch and breakfast every day. As a side note, I don't know how many of you saw, but today, or perhaps it was yesterday, I get my dates mixed up a little bit at this point, but Governor Stitt, for the 2nd year in a row, has declined to take your tax dollars back from the federal government and provide an EBT program so that during this coming summer, food insecure households can have money to help pay for the food that their children will receive. And I'm sure that many of you might be impacted by that. I think that's a terrible decision. And I think that you're already paying way too much in federal taxes. And for our governor, for political reasons and based purely upon ideological reasons, to reject to bring those funds back to Oklahoma to help out Oklahoma's children is unconscionable. But I won't belabor that point too much. I think that y'all can get it. The next thing I think we can do with those funds from the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act is I would love to establish a new tax credit here in Oklahoma, for public school teachers who have to spend money out of pocket for the supplies for their classroom. I don't even think it has to be huge. $250 per year per teacher could go a long way to ensuring that classrooms have the supplies they need, and students and parents who come from low-income households do not feel guilty for being unable to provide all of the supplies that their child might need for school. Instead of sticking the bill with teachers who are already overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, and undervalued, we can create a very small tax credit for those same teachers so that they can continue to do the work of educating your child, of taking care of them while you're working, while they're away from the home, and allowing them to fully participate in the classroom activities without feeling guilt that they don't have a pencil or a piece of paper to write on. And with the additional funds, if we choose as a collective society to continue paying for private school tuitions, so be it. So long as we can take care of our children in public school first, and then take care of our teachers who sacrifice every single day for the hundreds of thousands of children who attend public school, then I will be satisfied with the program as it exists at that point. The next thing that I want to do to improve education here in Oklahoma is I believe that we need to immediately pass legislation that restricts the ability of the state superintendent of public education to withhold funds from a school district without two things happening first. One, I think that the State Department of Education must prove that funds were either misspent or a law or regulation was violated, and then seek second, legislative approval. At that point, the state as an entity can withhold funds from that district and ensure compliance with law, compliance with statute, and compliance with regulation, instead of a single individual doing it for whatever reason they have dreamed up in their mind. That is too much power for one single person to have without any accountability to the people, students, or teachers of Oklahoma. And I think we should change that immediately. I'll keep saying this, but quick interjection. If you have any questions for me, I'm not that great at social media. I can stand here in front of it and talk to you, but the ability to scroll through it and see what everybody's asking goes over my head. I apologize. If you can shoot me an email at mitch@mitchelljacob.com, put your questions in it, put your comments in it. At the end, I'm going to go to those and see what you would like me to address and answer. And I'm going to be more than happy to do that. So mitch@mitchelljacob.com, and I'll start addressing those questions here in a little while. Thanks so much for being here tonight. It's great having each of you. The second issue I want to bring up today is infrastructure. And this means three things to me, at least as it relates to House District 20. So number one is water. House District 20 is having critical shortages of water across the district. We've had recent events that have taken out the pump station in Blanchard. The lines are overloaded, leading to also to Blanchard. Goldsby rejected the Newcastle contract that offered to sell water to Goldsby and immediately started getting hit with daily rationing of water, telling people they can't fill pools or water yards because the towers cannot even fill as fast as the water is used, and they're at risk of having no water in the towers whatsoever. To turn on a tap and not get water in the middle of America, the United States of America, is a huge oversight and a lack of planning that we need to address immediately. when you help me become House District 20's next elected representative, I'm going to go in front of the Oklahoma Water Resources Board and see what funding, whether that be a loan, emergency grants, whatever the case may be. But I want to be your representative at the Oklahoma Water Resources Board and get immediate funding to solve these shortages that are facing Blanchard and Goldsby every single day, and that New Castle is at risk of being exposed to, and that are definitely affecting some of our neighbors in Tuttle, in Grady County, and Washington, and places of that nature. But if we can get Blanchard, New Castle, and Goldsby's water addressed today, that will have positive ripple effects to our neighbors who we sell water to, if we're able to get enough water ourselves. So the first issue on infrastructure for me is addressing the critical shortages of water right here in House District 20. The next, this mostly applies to my good friends who live in Blanchard and New Castle, but anyone who's driven through these areas will know what I'm about to say. How often, my friends, have you driven through New Castle? You come up to one of those super narrow bridges and you begin to immediately pray that a Prius and not a semi is coming across the other way. These narrow single-lane bridges that were installed in either the late 50s or the early 60s probably made a lot of sense when New Castle was a small farming community of 800 to 1,000 people 60 years ago when we were incorporated. Fast forward to 2024, and we have officially hit 15,000 residents, my friends, 15,000, and we still have those same bridges. 2 in New Castle, 1 in Blanchard, and then an underpass in New Castle that all need modernized. I have to use that phrase modernized because traffic studies show that we don't have enough traffic to need them replaced, and they're also not crumbling, so we don't need new bridges. Instead, we need modern infrastructure. What does that mean to me? Well, a bridge that can only hold 1 car at a time is a huge restriction on our roads, our long-term planning, and our efforts. In fact, I've had the chance to sit down with some of the members of our city council and talk about the efforts they're taking to push utilities out, to begin the expansion process so that we can start paving new roads. But they can't do anything until the bridges are addressed. We've already pushed utilities out. We've already moved water lines. We've already moved sewage. We're already ready for these new roads. But what good is a 4-lane or a 5-lane road that has to hit a 1-lane bridge and then widen back out into a 5-lane road? We have that problem in 3 places in New Castle and 1 in Blanchard. I want to address those, modernize our bridges, modernize our roads, and get ready for the continuing explosion in growth and population that we're experiencing here in House District 20. If you know of any additional bridges or bottlenecks in infrastructure that we have here in the district, shoot me an email, mitch@mitchelljacob.com, or give me a text, 405-407-6975. That is my cell phone number. You're welcome to reach out to me and let me know what else I should be addressing for our district. So the 2 issues I've addressed so far in infrastructure are water for the district and being a representative at the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, and bridges, modernizing our road infrastructure here in the district, because we are the fastest growing district here in Oklahoma, and we need to get ready for a continuing boom of our population. The third item is reliable internet. My friends, it is 2024, and I have an aunt who lives in Claremore and an aunt who lives in Owasso, and there is no physical connection to their homes in the Tulsa metro area, and they're required to use satellite internet. That internet is slow, it is expensive, and it doesn't even work on a night like tonight where it's not raining, but it's overcast. And so if I were to try to Skype or Zoom with my aunt, it simply would not work. And in 2024, we must do better than that. There are a variety of reasons why I believe that we need reliable internet. One being obvious, it's 2024. But let's think beyond that. I am an advocate, for example, in education, that textbooks are heavy, difficult to replace, they go out of date, and if they're damaged, you lose actual knowledge. However, if you have a Chromebook and it has textbooks loaded to it for the students of a school, then that information can be updated every summer. If it's lost, broken, or destroyed, you simply replace the Chromebook. And lugging textbooks around is heavy and difficult, but most children can lug around a Chromebook. The other thing that I feel very strongly about on this topic, I've read statistics that in rural America, and Oklahoma is included in that study. Excuse me, I meant to say study, not statistics, excuse me. But there are federal studies that show in most of rural America, the households may not have a single device that is connected to the internet. Whether or not that's because there's internet is an open question, but if we can at least get them internet, we can address that. And then if we can get them a Chromebook for their children to study with, the other benefit is that we have the ability then to encourage, build, and promote as a government and an entity telehealth and remote health solutions. So families who live in rural Oklahoma, in one of the corners, or hours away from a major metropolitan area like Lawton, Oklahoma City, or Tulsa, where there might be great medical services, can get counseling, therapy, triage, basic assistance through telehealth, new prescriptions, and things of that nature, and only have to actually travel into the cities if they need to get an actual procedure done, surgery, follow-up, or something of that nature. Excuse me. But for everyone else, we can encourage telehealth solutions, we can encourage remote learning solutions, and we can encourage remote work solutions. I think that it's time to modernize Oklahoma. My friends, I've talked so far about education and infrastructure. I'd like to take a moment to remind you that if you have any questions for me, anything you'd like me to address during this live Meet the Candidate event, give me an email, mitch@mitchelljacob.com, or if you prefer to text me, get ready. That is 405-407-6975, and you'll be able to text me directly and let me know your questions, and I'll try to check them there at the end. And yes, I see that post right there. I am running as a Democrat in House District 20 right here in Oklahoma. I'm the first one who's run in this district in eight years. And I'm honored, honestly, to be doing it. I love how many people I get to meet. My wife probably doesn't love that my hair is going to turn gray by the end of this, but it's wonderful and appreciated nonetheless. And we're so thankful to be in a position to try to be a voice for everyone who lives right here in the district, to be a voice for the children who are going to public school in Oklahoma, and to push back against Ryan Walters' wild agenda. But for those of you who are just joining, because I can see that happening, I'm just going to do another really quick introduction. I'll be much faster this time, and then I'll move on to my next topic, which will be small business. So my name is Mitchell Jacob. I'm a fourth generation Oklahoman. My wife and I have 5 kids. They're all boys. We're very blessed. It's a full household, and every day is a new adventure. I'm a product of public schools. I'm one of 9 children. I joined the Army. And actually, I enlisted in the Army. When I enlisted in the Army, I quit my job as a stockbroker to do that. I know it might be a little bit crazy, but it's the good kind, I promise. And I'm very honored to be where I am today and helping in the way that I am. So the next topic I'd like to discuss for a moment is small business. And there are 2 ways that I want to incentivize small business here in Oklahoma. Excuse me. Well, that's perfectly fine, Kevin. Don't have my glasses on, sorry. But we could still use your support. Share it with everyone. Join the email list and stay up to date. And I'm sure that we can talk again later. But there are 2 ways really that we can promote small business in Oklahoma that I've come up with, I should say. Number 1, and this one is kind of my pride and joy, and I think I can even get my friends across the aisle to see this one as a good idea. And if someone steals it from me, that's perfectly fine, because it'll help Oklahoma, and that's all that I'm here to do. I think that we should pass a new tax incentive that allows a natural person or a real person, not another company opening a subsidiary or anything, but a natural person who is an Oklahoma resident who opened starts a new corporation, I think that we should allow them 5 years or until they reach $500,000 in annual gross revenue tax-free. I'll say that again. I want to start a new tax incentive so that new corporations started by an Oklahoma resident who is a natural person, that they can get 5 years or until their business reaches $500,000 in annual gross revenue, and that they should not pay any corporate taxes until one of those two events occurs. The corporate tax rate in Oklahoma is currently 4%. We're the lowest in the country. And at $500,000, that is only $20,000 per year in tax revenue. Let's be honest, the state of Oklahoma will not even notice that it's not collecting that relatively paltry sum. But a small business owner will certainly notice that they have saved $20,000 per year. That is a large chunk of a decent salary, a company vehicle, possibly a year's worth of lease or rent on certain types of businesses. And that $20,000 could go a long way for a business, but it will not address any of Oklahoma's outstanding problems. So let's let more people start businesses, more people grow, more people become independent, hire other people, promote the economy where they live, and contribute to Oklahoma's overall economic health, while getting a small tax break. The way that I want to structure it ensures that the wealthy who want to start a $100 million company, they're already over the income cap. If Exxon wants to create a subsidiary, they're not a natural person. And that's how I want to ensure that only the working class of Oklahoma benefits from this tax break. Another way that we can help small business in Oklahoma. A number of years ago, the federal government and the IRS basically issued a challenge to the states saying that we will tax LLCs jointly owned by a husband and wife based upon state law. And most states took that challenge up and edited their LLC code to allow a 50-50 ownership of an LLC by two married spouses to be what is called a disregarded entity. To say that a different way, the federal government and the IRS will completely ignore that LLC and will not tax them at the business level, but will instead just tax them as any other worker in America is based on their salary. Oklahoma is one of the few states in the country that have not taken that challenge up. Take care. And we still have it so that a 50-50 ownership of an LLC by legally married spouses are taxed by the IRS as an S corp or a C corp. And all we need is a small change to our LLC code to allow small businesses in Oklahoma to be disregarded by the IRS. And I don't know about you, but I think the IRS takes too much of my money, my friends, and I think they take too much of your money. So I would like to help anyone here who owns an LLC and has a small business to save more money. And if that's you, I need your help. MitchellJacob.com. Take a look, join the campaign, join the movement, and let's help me get into office so that we can amend that LLC code to benefit, again, only small businesses. This will not be a change that affects multi-million-dollar corporations or billion-dollar corporations. It will only affect 50-50 ownership of an LLC by a husband and wife. That is the specific target of that particular legislation, which is small business. So we've discussed education, infrastructure, and small business. And now I want to talk about jobs for just a moment. Oklahoma should be a very competitive place in this union for jobs. We have the lowest corporate tax rate in the United States at 4%. We have an incredibly low income tax, although to be clear and fair, we have a very high, let me rephrase what I'm trying to say, excuse me. We're very regressive. We tax consumption, we tax spending, and we tax earnings, but we tend to ignore salaries and corporate taxes and things of that nature. That's a different issue that we should address, but I can only tackle so many things at a time. And all that to say that we should be very competitive in this union for corporations and for large businesses. Let's look at that for a second. We have Sonic and we have Devon as two primary examples of businesses that are headquartered right here in Oklahoma City. I'm pointing this way because that's north, and Oklahoma City is right there. But they're not incorporated in Oklahoma, and that should strike you as strange. And I've had a lot of time to study under, he doesn't know I'm saying this, so if I get in trouble, it's too bad, but the esteemed Steve Cleveland at the Oklahoma College of Law, University of Oklahoma College of Law. I've taken every course that he offers in business law, and I've had a lot of opportunity to study the Delaware Corporate Code. And you might be interested to know this, but 60%, give or take, of every publicly traded company in the United States is incorporated out of Delaware. There are a lot of reasons for that, but most of them wouldn't be what you think. But that means that every year, these businesses pay $250 to maintain their registration. They pay to have employees be there because they have to maintain a physical location there, things of that nature. And Delaware gets a ton of money from the way that it is structured, its business law, its corporate code, if you will. Well, a few years ago, roughly 40, I say that, I get it flippantly, but about 40 years ago, Oklahoma ripped the entire Delaware corporate code, basically word for word, and enacted it as the Oklahoma General Corporations Act, OGCA. But we didn't do any of the other work. We just said, here's the legislation, and we're going to enact it. And so now we should be as competitive as Delaware. But that is not how it works, because Delaware has taken a lot of time to do other things. For example, Delaware has a court of chancery. A court of chancery is a specialized court which has chancellors instead of judges. And all that they do is hear corporate law. So when a business sues another business, or an investor sues its investment, or something like that, it's always in the court of chancery. It is not heard in the general courts of general jurisdiction, which we would think of as the municipal court or the district court, McLean County, Oklahoma County, something like that. So one, it takes all of those business disputes out of the general docket. So instead of, having to hear a marriage and then a business dispute and then a criminal case, all business cases are now removed, and they no longer clutter the local dockets at the county level, and instead are removed to the jurisdiction of the chancellors exclusively. The next thing that Delaware does is the Delaware legislature has, once upon a time, committed to updating its corporate code annually. And they have done that every single year since they originally made that pledge some 50, 60, 70 years ago. And Delaware is very good at reacting to what corporations need. We don't have the same setup in Oklahoma, so we can't possibly be competitive from that perspective. So one thing I believe we could do is, one, we need to amend the Oklahoma Corporate Code. I have that on my website. Things like eliminate appraisal rights for investors. We need to simplify the way that businesses can buy and sell each other, allowing forward triangular mergers and reverse and things of that nature. Fun buzzwords, but long story short, allow more flexibility to corporate officers and corporate directors, establish courts of chancery, and we should start incentivizing businesses to come here without a tax break. Again, we have the lowest corporate tax rate in America, 4%. So if we can become more competitive on the way that corporations are governed in Oklahoma, I think that we can start incentivizing and encouraging more companies to come here, not only to be headquartered, but to be incorporated. My goal is to make Oklahoma the preferred state of incorporation for oil and gas businesses and fleet logistics companies. So trucking companies, rental fleets, things of that nature. I think they should be incorporated and headquartered out of here. And I think that oil and gas business like Exxon, Devon, and others, they should also be incorporating out of Oklahoma, because I don't know if you know this, but our greatest export is oil and gas, and many of them operate here. So that's just one way I believe that we can build more jobs here in Oklahoma. So for those of you who are more recently joining, I'd like to switch over to my first topic again, just really briefly, which is education. The reason I chose to run for office is because my wife and I, we have 5 kids. They're all boys. We're so blessed and thankful, but they all go to public school. And we are tired of being tired of the way things are. And we decided to do something about it. And so I'm running for office to make a difference. 2 things I want to do to try to push Oklahoma from 49th to at least 48th in the nation. And then we can keep going from there. But we need to get that first step and then continue it in order to truly start making a difference. Number 1, I want to change the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's already in effect, but I'm going to use next year's number because it's the permanent funding number. $250 million per year of taxpayer money, your tax dollars, to pay for private school tuition. I don't know about you, but I think that 49th out of 50 in education means that we need to invest in public education before we spend another dime on a single private school tuition. So let's amend that, and let's first use those funds to pay for school, lunch, and breakfast for every child who attends a public school in Oklahoma. And then second, create a new tax credit for teachers in Oklahoma, public school teachers in Oklahoma, who have to purchase supplies out of pocket for their classroom so that they're not stuck with the bill on the salaries that we're already struggling to increase here in the state. And for those of you who'd like me to address something specific, please shoot me an email really quickly. That's going to be mitch@mitchelljacob.com or a text at 405-407-6975. And I will get to those in just a moment. And I would love to know what you think I should do as your next representative, House District 20. A couple of things I'd like to address really quickly. The Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free nation, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I noticed 2 really interesting things about the Second Amendment that are not actually usually discussed when people like to talk about this topic. First, the 3rd word of the Second Amendment is regulated. I'll say that again. The 3rd word of the Second Amendment has the word regulated in it. And the founding fathers and framers must have known that we needed the ability to regulate guns in this society. So the 3rd word again is regulated. The next thing I notice is that the right that is protected by the Second Amendment is the right to keep and the right to bear arms. It is not the right to purchase arms. It's not the right to bear any arm. It's not the right to any sort of ammunition of any sort whatsoever, bump stocks, whatever. It's just the right to keep and bear arms. So I believe 2 things on the Second Amendment. These are the only 2 things that I really want. Since I was in the Army, I had to qualify on my weapon twice annually. I had to show that I could still use it. It wasn't a one-time deal. So if you want to purchase a firearm in Oklahoma, I think that you should pass a background check. I think that's pretty straightforward. And then I only have 2 things that I want you to prove at the time in which you purchase. 1, that you know how to safely and properly operate the weapon system that you are looking to purchase, whether that is a rifle of some sort or a sidearm. You need to know how to use it. Those are very different weapon systems. They have different recoil, you engage with them differently, and you use them differently. So prove that you can use it. And second, prove that you can properly and safely store it, whether that's a trigger lock, whether that's a safe, however it is that you're going to safely store that weapon, just prove that. And then you can purchase your weapon. I will say this, though. I do not support the gun show loophole that allows you to purchase a firearm without passing a background check. What I think is in violation of federal law, but that's neither here nor there. We can just solve it as a state. The next topic I want to discuss, and I'm just going to say this as plainly as I can, I'm pro-choice. It's your body. It's your right. I have no right whatsoever to get between you and your choices and your medical decisions, and I don't think the government should ever get in the middle of that either. Let me just hit on a couple more very, 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 very quickly, and then I will look. And he doesn't know I'm going to do it, but I have a special guest with me today, and I'm going to make him join us in just a moment. Living wage. I am very proud of State Question 832 and all the work that each and every one of you have done to get almost 200,000 signatures, my friends, to raise the wage, the minimum wage that is in Oklahoma, to $15 per hour. I was there for the turn-in, and what an exciting time, what a memorable and wonderful time that was to pick up those hundreds of thousands of signatures and lug them into the Secretary of State's office and drop them off so that you can vote. Let me say that again, so that the people of Oklahoma can vote on the minimum wage that you want in our great state. If the legislature will not act and increase wages, then thankfully the people of Oklahoma are not afraid to do it themselves. And I'm so proud of you guys. Parental leave. First of all, I dislike the distinction between maternity leave and paternity leave. Who cares? It is someone's child, and they deserve the chance to bond with that baby, to meet it, and have that baby love them in turn through that skin-to-skin contact. Did you know that the only guaranteed parental leave in this state is 1 week of maternity leave for qualified state employees? That's it. I had a professor who had a baby. She had to be back in 1 week. That is terrible. And not every state employee gets that, I've come to just find out. So I personally believe that we should be doing 120 days of guaranteed job protection. I will be happy if we can start there. Even if it's unpaid, the fact that you can go spend time with your baby and then know that your job will have to be waiting for you is still better than what we have today. And unfortunately, that's the best I can do right now, is promote something that's better than nothing. Although if you could have a year off like Finland and get paid fully, that'd be super sick, but we might have to wait for another time. I really want to say this because I find this very important. So in February of this year in the Newcastle Pacer and the Purcell Register, I published an article on this, and I want to say that so that it doesn't seem like I'm pandering to any particular person. But I believe that Governor Stitt is waging a crusade against our tribal partners here in Oklahoma, targeting and attacking them. And I believe, I don't just believe, I recognize and I respect that tribes are sovereign nations with the right to govern their own members and the right to determine their membership. And I strongly disagree with this crusade that Governor Stitt is waging against the tribes. And all I want to do is be a partner with the tribes. And I did that by making the very first phone call I made in this campaign was to the Chickasaw Nation to introduce myself and ask to speak with their government liaison because this land is Chickasaw land. It was Chickasaw land long before I moved here, and it will be Chickasaw land long after I'm dead. I am simply a steward of this land and your vote, and I believe that strongly. Would you like to join us for a moment?
Sure.
So my good friends, he didn't know I was going to do it, but I switched this kind of last minute from an in-person event to a virtual event, and my friend Andy Fugate showed up to come say hi, and I'm very honored to have him here. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. I have friends out in this community, and so I'm waving at Nikki, and I'm waving at your mom and dad, Paul and Carolyn. So hope you guys are watching tonight. This has been just an absolutely amazing display of a grasp of issues that is rare to see in a new candidate for office. And I'm just floored by what I've been listening to this evening. The depth of knowledge, the depth of thinking that has gone into the presentation that I have watched tonight and that you have watched tonight is bar none. So if you're not already convinced, and if you're not talking to your neighbors and friends about Jacob, then my golly, start doing it now.
Thanks, Andy.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate you. Yeah, it's been wonderful. what my wife will probably tell you is that the one thing I do is think. Probably too much, honestly, and unfortunately. But all I can say is that I love this state. I am an Oklahoman. I was born here, and I'm so incredibly proud to be here and to be a voice and try to be a solution in a state that seems to be going, can I say it? Bonkers is the word I will use. A state that seems like it's trying to go off the rails. When the legislature decided to make the State Department of Education an administrative agency, have an elected head, I do not think that it knew what those problems could be. So for those of you who don't know, the State Superintendent of Public Education was elected by the people of Oklahoma to sit and run the Department of Education. But as far as I'm aware, we're the only state in the United States that does that. Even at the federal level, it is appointed. So what you normally don't have to do when you create an administrative agency is define its outer limits. If that agency's head is not performing the mandate of that agency, you can replace them and bring someone else in who will make sure that the agency is complying with its mandate. But when you have an elected official who can only be impeached for violations of law or abdication of office or one of the constitutionally enumerated reasons for impeachment, then suddenly you have to have emergency legislative sessions to throw roadblocks in their way and prevent them from taking actions that you never even thought that you'd have to address because you didn't realize you'd get someone who is completely determined to take an office of public trust and that builds the children of Oklahoma and use it for personal ambition and gain. And I am very saddened that we find ourselves here, that we can reach across the aisle over the State Superintendent of Public Education. That is one of the few topics that I would hope would just be, we all work together because we want to benefit children, not we all work together because someone is trying to burn down the institutions that educate our children and allow them to become better people and contributing members of society. And when you elect me, Mitchell Jacob, to be your next representative for House District 20, I will be an advocate for the education that your children receive. And if you choose to go back to school, because I love our vocational technology centers here in Oklahoma, then I will still be an advocate for you as an adult learner. I've had the pleasure of meeting Superintendent Eubank of Mid-America Technology Center many times, and I've even done a debate over there at MATC. And I love what they're doing, and I want to continue to partner with them and see how I can improve the education that you and your children will receive there and that your children will receive at school every single day.
Mitchell, can I jump in?
Oh, please, Andy. Here's Andy again.
So for folks who are listening, I just want to remind you that Career Tech in Oklahoma is public school. Yes. It is run by public school teachers. The same thing that we have in our public schools in brick and mortar, in our charters here in Oklahoma, we have that in Career Tech. But guess what, folks? We have the best in the nation Career Tech. There is none better across the United States. And so we have to take a step back and say, what is it that's really driving Career Tech to the heights that we have, and what's plaguing public schools here in Oklahoma? I promise you, it is not teachers and indoctrination and all that. Fundamentally, it's one thing. It's leadership. And Mitchell was talking just a moment ago about the accountability that needs to be in place for our elected state superintendent who thinks he's a pastor instead of a public school servant. It's time that we elect people like Mitchell Jacob who will hold him accountable. That's what Ryan needs. And for those who want to keep Ryan in office, and there are Republicans across the state that do, my friends, I just have to tell you, if he will do his job, he won't have a problem. The problem he has is he believes his job is truly indoctrinating kids, and it's going on the national news instead of working on problems right here at home.
You couldn't have said it better, Andy. And how true is that? The fact that we want to, I don't have a problem with a Bible in a classroom. I go to church. My church, I can see it from here, right over there. I go to church every Sunday. But one, I choose to take my child to church, and I do not choose to have the church imposed upon my child. But two, I've picked who I want to teach my child the word. I'm running for office, so let me change the way I was going to phrase that. I have picked who my child's spiritual advisor is going to be. And I do not believe that we should be taking overworked, undervalued, and underappreciated teachers and adding a hat. We don't know their religion. We don't know their beliefs. We don't know their upbringing. We don't know anything as a general matter when we write a piece of legislation, or in this case, I suppose, a rule from the Department of Education, saying that every teacher, regardless of their beliefs, regardless of their religion, regardless of their education, must now somehow teach the Bible to every child in Oklahoma. First of all, Ryan Walters doesn't have that authority. That is not something that the State Department of Education has the ability or power to impose upon a school district. And the fact that he even says that is just smoke and mirror. And it can't happen that way. And you can see that by the number of school districts that have signed on to that letter stating that they will not comply with that rulemaking. And second, even if he did have that authority, Article 2, Section 2 of the Oklahoma Constitution, as well as the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, as well as Article 2, Section 8 of the Oklahoma, it's not Section 8, that's bail. There are two provisions in the Oklahoma Constitution. I just blanked, forgive me. I was at a trial earlier, and I'm stuck on some of those. But there are two provisions in the Oklahoma Constitution and the United States Constitution which clearly state that we cannot use either public funds to pay for religion, or we can't adopt a religion within these United States. And forcing the Bible to be taught in schools can be nothing but a violation of both provisions of the Oklahoma Constitution as well as the United States Constitution. And if you're questioning whether or not that analysis is correct, all that I can point to is the St. Isidore decision from my weeks blend together as a few weeks ago, but the Oklahoma Supreme Court ruled that a Catholic charter school, even if it's an online school, is a violation of two provisions of the Oklahoma Constitution and the First Amendment to the United States. So even though the State Department of Education, I guess I don't know exactly how that board works, but even though that board has chosen to waste more of your taxpayer dollars by appealing that decision to the United States Supreme Court, even if they rule that the First Amendment wasn't violated, it doesn't matter because the federal Supreme Court cannot choose to say that it doesn't violate the Oklahoma Constitution. So it still won't be allowed, even though they voted to waste more taxpayer dollars appealing this to the federal Supreme Court. The most that could happen is that they say the First Amendment wasn't violated, but it will leave the state's interpretation of the state constitution untouched. So it is a moot point. It doesn't even matter. And again, he's wasting more of your money on expensive attorneys and expensive law firms to try to get his name on federal news in front of millions of Americans instead of Oklahomans, where his attention should be. And that's all I need to know that Ryan Walters isn't doing his job, not to mention the 1,000 other things that we have to fight about. The fact that we every week have something new to complain about is mind-boggling. That we're not just focused on the Bible mandate or St. Isidore or unfortunately, I wasn't ready to talk about the state superintendent of public education, but
$1 billion in safety funds. And
there's so many reasons that he is just violating his mandate. But that's enough talking about someone else, and let's talk about House District 20. So just a quick recap. Send me an email at mitch@mitchelljacob.com. I'm going to start checking really quickly for questions and see what I can answer right now for those who have sent me something. All right, let's see. Just going through. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate you. And thank you, Cherie, bear with me. Well, doesn't seem to be a bunch of questions, just a bunch of positive responses. So I thank you all for a bunch of well wishes, and I guess not well wishes, sorry, for a bunch of statements about how it's exciting to hear a candidate who supports the people. But I've got to say, my friends, the further I get into this election, so I've been working at this now for about 8 months. I announced in early December. It actually saddens me that a candidate who wants to talk about the people of Oklahoma and how to help people and how to help students is out of the norm. Why would someone run for office if their goal is not to represent and help the people that they're asking to vote for them? That's just mind-boggling to me. And I believe that the only role of an elected official is to serve those who vote them into office. But even beyond that, it's to serve those who live in that district. Because one thing I want to make very clear, when you elect me to be the next representative for House District 20, I'm not going to represent Democrats. I'm not going to represent Republicans. I'm not going to represent Libertarians. I'm not going to represent Independents. And I'm not even going to represent just registered voters. I'm going to represent the people who call House District 20 home, all 40,000 of them. Whether that means I have to knock more doors and register more voters so I know their names and how to contact them, whether that means I have to host more events and town halls so that more people can come and contact me, or whether it means I need to say my cell phone number and get ready, grab a pen and pencil. I'm going to say it again right now. I will do whatever is needed to make sure that you're represented. Here's a quick question. And if you don't know it within 10 seconds, it's problematic. But who is your current representative at the state level? Let me ask that again. Who is your current representative at the state level? If you don't know, then how did they even get elected into office? That's a question that you're going to need to think about. And if you believe that it's because of straight party voting or because voter turnout isn't high enough or we don't have enough people registered to vote, then I need you to come and get involved. Come join the campaign. Come help me register more people and get more people engaged in this process because that's the only way that we can get rid of representatives who don't care about what they're representing. And I had asked a question, but I got kind of invested in my rhetoric and I forgot it. So I do apologize. But yes, thank you so much. That's a great point. If you are not currently registered to vote in Oklahoma and you want to register to vote in the general election, you must register by October 11th. October 11th is the cutoff this year, 2024, to get registered to vote for the general election, which is on November 5th. And because I get this question a lot, I want to clarify it really quickly. November 5th is voting for everything from president down the ballot to lowly representatives like me at the state level. You'll have Congress. I actually haven't checked whether or not we have a senator. I don't believe so, but I'd have to look at the federal level. But federal office, statewide office. So we have a corporation commission election that's coming up. I think that's the only statewide office. Is that correct? I believe so. And then we have like state senate and House of Representatives. And so I'll be at the bottom of your ballot, but you have to show up. And retention votes for judges and others in the Supreme Court and at the county level. But for those of you who didn't know who your representative is in House District 20, her name is currently Sherry Conley. And thankfully, since so few people even know that, she's chosen not to run again. And we have an open seat, which means that we have a definite opportunity to vote. Well, I'll say it this way. I have been overwhelmed by the support that I've been receiving this election cycle. The number of volunteers who regularly show up, the number of people who are making phone calls and knocking doors and coming out to help spread the word and and register more voters and get the message out that there are Democratic and Republican candidates at both the state House and state Senate level. For everyone who lives in House District 20, even though we're multiple Senate districts, there is a Senate candidate for everyone in House District 20 and a House candidate. So I know I'm a Democrat, and I know you might need to wash your hands whenever we're done with this live cast after this, but hopefully I can convince you to vote for the person and not the party. Because, my friends, this is very important. You cannot vote for a party. Let me say it again. You cannot vote for a party. Every single time you go to vote, you must bubble in a person's name unless you choose straight party voting, which is a terrible idea. And even though I am a registered Democrat, I still vote by the person according to their beliefs and what they say they will do for my children and for yours. And voting for a party cannot do anything good. That's how you get into scenarios where you don't know who the representative is because they never show up to anything. They just keep getting elected because they're in the right party. So hopefully I can convince you that you should vote for a Democrat and you should vote for Mitchell Jacob. So let me do just a quick recap of what we talked about tonight. I don't see any outstanding questions, and I've taken up a lot of your time. So let me wrap this up for us really quickly. So my name is Mitchell Jacob. I'm the Democratic nominee for Oklahoma's House District 20. My wife and I moved here in 2022 when I transitioned off of active duty service from the Army. And I am an Oklahoma native. I was born in Tulsa. I hope you don't hold that against me. But when I got out of the Army, instead of moving back to Tulsa, the University of Oklahoma College of Law made the mistake of admitting me into its program. And so I'll be graduating with my law degree next May of 2025. And my wife and I have 5 kids. They go to public school, and they and their education are the reason that I even chose to run for office in the first place. And my friends, I'm in law school right now. I'm working as a public defender. I did not anticipate running at this particular point in my life, but I got tired of, one, complaining about the state of education in Oklahoma and decided to do something about it. But the second thing is, I got tired of complaining that I couldn't even vote in the general election because there were no candidates, and I'm not a registered Republican, so it's all Republican primaries that decide all of the seats. And I realized that I could continue to complain about that too, or if all I needed was a candidate, I can just run. And perhaps I'm qualified. That's up to you to decide. MitchellJacob.com. Go take a look, please. I have 23 issues addressed on that. I've addressed a bunch tonight, and I'm going to hit a bunch really quickly in a recap. Here we go. Education. We need to amend the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act so that we stop paying for private school tuition and instead use that money to pay for free lunch and breakfast for every child who attends public school in Oklahoma. Infrastructure. House District 20 is facing critical shortages of water across the district. I want to be a representative at the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, try to get funding and solutions to House District 20's critical shortages of water. Bridges. We have too many old, narrow, tiny bridges in Newcastle and Blanchard, and I think that they need to be replaced. And I want to be your candidate and your representative at the Oklahoma Department of Transportation to get those bridges out of here. Oh, shoot. Sorry, it's trying to kick me off because it thinks that I'm not actually here. Sorry, guys. I was trying to do this very quickly. Bear with me. There we go. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, so it was trying to kick me off. Bridges need to be replaced. Then reliable internet. I have family who live in a metro area, Tulsa specifically, who don't have physical internet. And I just don't understand how that's possible in 2024. And I believe that we need to do grant programs to electric cooperatives, not for-profit utilities, to bring more internet to more places in Oklahoma. Small business. I think we can incentivize small business 2 ways. One, a new tax credit for new corporations started by a regular person, where they get 5 years or until they reach $500,000 in gross annual revenue, and they don't pay any state taxes at the corporate level. On the flip side, I think we can amend the LLC code to allow a husband and wife or legally married spouses who are 50-50 owners of an LLC to be disregarded by the IRS and not be taxed at the federal level. Jobs. I think that we can amend the Oklahoma General Corporations Act, create courts of chancery, and bring more corporations to incorporate in Oklahoma, bring more jobs, and we should get companies at least like Devon and Sonic, who are headquartered right there in Oklahoma City, but are not incorporated in Oklahoma, to want to incorporate where they're headquartered. I'm pro-choice because what you do with your body is not the government's business. And I do not think that the government has any right to impose itself on your choices. I believe that the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free nation, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. I noticed two things about the Second Amendment. One, the third word is regulated. Regulated is the third word. And I noticed that the right that is protected is the right to keep and to bear arms, not the right to bear any sort of arm or even the right to purchase arms. And thus, everyone should be required to pass a background check before they purchase a weapon. And we need to immediately close the, the gun show loophole. So that was a rapid fire. I saw a question that came through really quickly that asked me what I think about free lunch and breakfast. And all I can say is that the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act is currently taking $250 million of your taxpayer money every single year and giving it to private entities who we can't track what they do with that money. And by the way, a study was just done. 40% of Oklahoma's private schools increased tuition to the exact amount of the income of the parental choice tax credit. That means that they're just taking advantage of this credit to make money. We need to spend that on public schools, and specifically, I believe that we need to fund free lunch and free breakfast for every student who attends public school with that $250 million. My friends, let me give you my email and let me give you my cell phone number right now. If you'd like to talk to me directly, I'm about to sign off of here. You're welcome to give me a call, and I would love to chat with you and answer any questions that you may have. My email, excuse me, is, Mitch, MITCH, at mitchelljacob.com. Just spelled the way it sounds. My last name is not Jacobs, so there's no S on it. If you add an S to it, nothing will go through properly. My last name is Jacob. So Mitch at mitchelljacob.com. That's my email. mitchelljacob.com is my website. And my cell phone number, if you're ready, you can text me or you can call me, is 405-407-6975. And for those who just asked, because I got it a couple times, I am running as a Democrat here in Oklahoma. So if you need to wash your hands after this live broadcast, I totally understand. But I am on the November ballot for anyone who lives in House District 20. Thank you all so much. It's really been a pleasure. And I hope to see you all next month when I do my next one of these. Take care. It's going to take me a moment to awkwardly get out of here because I don't know anything about it.